Performance audit reporting is what it contains about the human element, their attitudes, sentiments, emotions, which are reflected with the understanding of information in the report. Completeness. All relevant information necessary to satisfy the audit objective, comprising the information concerning scope, criteria, evidence, conclusions, and recommendations, is considered as a complete report. Therefore, all such information should be presented in the report. So, when is certain things which is being defined as complete? When everything is completed, there is a pattern of information, a certain objective that is given to you, and you meet all those objective criteria. That is the scope, evidence, conclusions, recommendations, everything. When you submit, that is when it is called as a complete report. Accuracy. What is accuracy means? Which is correctly depicted, which is correctly with confidence you are able to manage this performance audit. Objectivity is where you are guaranteeing a balanced output. Convincing is again where, convincing is something which people are not easily convinced because of the report that you have made. So once the report has been finalized, the kind of conclusions and recommendations that you follow up logically is what is when people will be convinced. Clarity is where you are able to easily are able to read and comprehend. Conscientiousness is the brevity of the report. The report should be brief and focused. Balance is where you're concising the size of the audit report. Balance is, be it negative or positive, both the criticism and the good performances, you are able to draw conclusions to both. Consistency is where you are able to bring out in your report the final findings and conclusions, and you are able to believe that certain thing is incompatible or compatible to a situation, to a report. Constructive is basically a derogatory remark which hurts people. So, audit report should demonstrate a corrective approach rather than a critical approach, and embraces suitable. So, it is basically more like conciseness, or it's more like balance, where you are able to criticize and you're able to also talk about the good performance, right? In balance. So, same thing in constructive is you are not giving a very derogatory, very harsh remarks to your employees, but you are able to embrace certain recommendations. Timeliness. Timeliness is the value of the report that has been enhanced only when it is given on time. What are the contents in the report that you must have? The contents is the title, the highlights, recommendations, introduction. Yeah. So what does the title say? Whatever the title of your audit topic is. And highlights is you're giving the objectives of your report. Recommendations is when you are preparing a final report and you're implying that these are the recommendations or these are the follow-up actions that a employee can take. Introduction is you're starting with your subject and you're implying a structure and you're anticipating a certain parts of introduction. Scope of audit is period of the program that is overcome by audit. Audit criteria is an appropriate explanation to your report. Audit methodology is where it is very, very necessary. You're following a certain points. You're following a certain methods about your audit findings and providing transparency of the audit procedure. Audit findings is the findings with respect to economy, efficiency, effectiveness, which should be depicted in a very logical way. Conclusions, recommendations, and impact analysis is whether they have to specify, preferably, whether it is subsequent to the audit findings. So, lesson learned and sensitivity to error signals is the noteworthy audit findings on sensitivity and effectiveness of the internal control system. That is the evaluations, the complaints, the study, the interest groups, all these things where you're considering. Acknowledgement is it is necessary to acknowledge the cooperation. That is in the end, what is it that you have acknowledged that is in terms of criteria, finding, impending on the stage. The graphs, charts, diagrams, photographs. So the visibility of the analysis and findings can be proved by illustrating the actual findings with the use of diagrams and validate evidence. Glossary of terms. The technical and rare terms used in the report have to be explained. And then the bibliography is what the reference that you have published, the materials that you have used is in developing report also should be indicated. So with this very interesting things we had learned about performance audit. Now next we are learning about how do we measure performance. We learn about 360 degrees appraisal. What is 360 degrees appraisal? Various advancements in the technology have facilitated the development of a number of online feedback systems. However, providing final appraisal rating is human process. Therefore, any appraisal system cannot win the hearts of people. So the basic attitude that appraisal is shown is the failure and appraiser is not a god. To have clean thoughts, make performance appraisal as red alert. Psychologists have made significant contributions in the development of psychological scales that are increasing use to the modern assessment process. Moreover, use of multi-raters, multi-methods, and multi-parameters are very important. Research on performance appraisal demonstrated a positive note about its increased acceptance, removing the basic doubt about appraisal that is scissors present financial emoluments also considered contributed to increased level of acceptance. People have started developing a changed mindset about use of appraisal as a tool for their development. So basically, see, performance is something that is a subsystem. Okay. So this particular subsystem will be dealing with two things, that is human performance and human's mental process. Okay. So these are the two things where you have to figure it out and give a final appraising in the form of rating. Okay, these ratings is not like a red alert, but it is more about how their contribution is towards the organization, and you are also ensuring that how they are able to increase their level of acceptance and enhance their performance. That is the only thing that we are concentrating on such performance parameters. Methods of performance appraisal. Performance appraisal is unique to each organization. There are number of methods available. Some of the methods are well defined and systematic, and others are formal, that are considered opinions of superiors. Now, basically, what is performance appraisal? There are number of methods in performance appraisal that you are using. There are methods which are systematic, there are informal and formal methods which the superiors are using. So these appraisal methods have two basic importance. That is, one basis is result and the other is trait. Work target goals and physical performance are subject to evaluation in the first place. Traits are personal attributes and behaviors which are measured. So I think, whenever we need to give ratings on human process, we rate the human process under two categories: that what is their performance and then what is their trait. Right. So, what is their performance is in the basis of how they're working, and trait is on the basis of what their personal attribution and behavior is towards the work. Single trait, a single subject method. In this method, either results or traits in absolute form are used. Only one person is evaluated. Single trait, multiple subject method. This method is to compare one person with another person on one single trait. So basically, single trait, single subject method is whether the results or traits is absolute form or used. Only one person is evaluated. This person trait is given. But multi subject method is where both the people are being measured in terms of a single trait. Multi trait single subject method, in this method evaluates one person on a number of traits. So let's understand the traditional methods. The first one is the essay method. It is one of the oldest methods. In this method, the rater expresses his opinion in the form of a written paragraph. Various parameters used for quality, quantity of work performance, job knowledge, knowledge of organization, its policies, procedures, rules, and regulations, strengths and weaknesses, potential for promotion, need for training, and few employee behavior attitudes. This is the essay method. In the traditional method, where the rater expresses his opinion in the form of a written paragraph. Now, in what paragraph, in what parameters that he expresses his opinions is all these things which we have read out, which can clearly define a employee's performance. Field review method. Now, this is the oldest method in which a person from HR department gives appraisal based on records of output, attendance, production, losses, quality, etc. So, field review method is quite easy. Work standard methods is the work performance which has to be established with targets. Checklist method is whether you're able to say yes or no. That is where what you're ticking whenever the person is finishing the work. Ranking method is where you're comparing to the other person and you're ranking them. Paired comparison is you're evaluating two people at the same time. Each person is compared with another person in the form of a single trait. Grading method. Certain predefined categories of abilities, presentation, performance are used. Rater places a person in a particular category, and that is when you're grading. This grading is about average, poor, not poor, and all that. Forced distribution method. Forced distribution method is the pattern of a normal curve. Like, in distributing employees, 10% each may be rated as excellent and poor respectively. 20% each are distributed in the grades of above and average and below average. The balance of 40% of employee is placed in the category of average. So this is the method that performance levels conform to normal distribution. Forced choice rating method. Forced choice rating method is maybe positive or negative, or one positive and another negative statement that you are choosing to give, like the employee is punctual or the employee often takes leave. Graphic rating scale method. It is also called as linear rating scale. In this, it is being printed. You're giving in terms of points. 5-point scale, and 5 strongly means agree, and 1 means you're disagreeing. This is the kind of rating scale that you're giving. Let us understand the modern methods. MBO. MBO, according to Peter F. Drucker, introduced the concept of management by objectives. Now, this was introduced in the performance appraisal as a methodology for which superior and subordinates have a joint discussion and they mutually agree on objectives and they measure the performance goals. Assessment centers. These assessment centers are in-depth interviews, that is the psychological test, peer ratings, leadership group discussions. All these parameters are taken into consideration and they are being used multiple types of evaluation and multiple raters. So performance appraisal is more objective and more acceptable in this manner. Then you have bars, that is the behavioral anchored rating scale, where critically incidents are generated in order to develop performance dimensions. Then, if needed, incidents are reallocated to bring a scale of incidents. Finally, instrument is prepared for job specific. Balanced scorecard. Now, balanced scorecard is a progress where you're measuring in terms of finance, customers, internal process, learning, growth, and all. 360 degrees performance appraisal is the multi-raters for all the four directions of each position, that is the superiors, subordinates, peers, and customers who are involved in the process of performance appraisal. Now, coming to the bias in performance appraisal. See, bias is performance appraisal, which is, one second, what's the time? Okay, we will stop in like few more minutes. So performance appraisal is increasingly used in most of the organization. It has evolved over time by overcoming a number of shortcomings in this system. Much advancement such as use of technical systems and inputs in the appraisal process has occurred in modern times. However, it should be remembered that appraisal is human mental process. Therefore, a number of barriers creep in the performance appraisal, making it less effective and limit the use of it. So situational, personal, and technical dimension make the process complicated. So various bias appears in the appraisal system that can be understood in the terms of following technical and psychological bias. So let's understand the technical bias. First is unacceptable standards. Now, managers or organizations, they sometimes determines the standards of performance against which the actual performance is measured. Many a times the criteria are difficult to determine in a clear and objective term. Therefore, there is ambiguity and vagueness that hampers common understanding of the criteria. For example, in case of software employees, the number of hours of system login takes as standard for working on a project becomes unacceptable as some of the employees may quickly finish their part of the job and deliver the best. So I think this happens most of the time where we are ensuring that this is the time that is given for you to work. And when you finish the work before time and you don't do any work after that, you tend to start being labeled as being free most of the time, right? Not working and not able to give a proper amount of work than anybody else. So I think this is one of the most unacceptable standards where, because this is something which I'm not able to measure. The number of hours is not supposed to be measured where this is the job which can be finished quickly or slowly as well. Measurement problem. So, a pharmaceutical company measures sales performance by the number of calls on doctors made by the sales executive. In rural area, there is less number of doctors available. Therefore, number of calls made is also less. This measuring by the number of calls made becomes unacceptable to sales executive working in rural areas. So measurement problem also. Now, depending upon the locality, when you have been given a work and that work does not require that much of assistance or that much of hard work or a number of calls, that it's been based on the judgment. So you cannot base on that particular judgment. Organizational issues. Now, there are, for example, in SSC Company Limited, there are uneducated coal fillers working in mines. The number of tons of coals as a criteria for measuring performance could be communicated to the less literate workers. Now, this is a problem of communication. Another example is that top management always shows poor support to the performance appraisal. Same thing. Appraisal techniques. Appraisal techniques is the techniques of group performance, the technique of individual performance, which is being used. We cannot understand the logic of applying different appraisal techniques, right? Training and coaching as well. See, it becomes a routine where you are evolving the training and counseling to a better system. But similarly, the counseling relationship becomes superior and subordinate, more like a personal judgment. So it cannot be incorporated in this particular project. So before we start the psychological bias, we will stop here and we'll continue in tomorrow's class. Thank you, class.